Many schools are built on sites that were once large cemeteries. It is said that this is because the dense population of the school can suppress the activity of ghosts due to the strong yang energy. Yet many schools still frequently experience eerie incidents, as is the place where you studied also built on an old cemetery. This incident happened to a teacher during my elementary school years, and from that point on, the teacher, who originally did not believe in the existence of ghosts and gods, started to believe that there are indeed ghosts in this world. The small school in the village was initially just a shabby and dilapidated hut, which was later rebuilt with funding from the county government. That night, Mr. Zhang was working overtime, reviewing test papers and preparing for the next day's lessons until late. It was around 9 o'clock when Mr. Zhang had just finished marking the papers and was about to stretch and continue preparing for tomorrow's lessons. But at that moment, a sudden and chaotic noise came from outside the window, which sounded like someone throwing sand at the window without. Mr. Zhang instantly felt a bit angry, thinking that it was a naughty student who was messing with him. But when he went out to take a look, the yard was empty. There was no one at all, so he thought that maybe these kids had found a place to hide. So he didn't pay too much attention to it and turned around to go back to the house to continue working again. However, just sat down, only to hear the window again came a burst of sand thrown on the glass sound. This time, Mr. Zhang even more angry, but when he was furious, rushed to the door to see. The yard is still dark and empty, cannot see what people. No way Mr. Zhang had to go back to the office to continue to prepare for the lesson. And surprisingly, he just sat down. The window once again came the sound of throwing sand. But this time, Mr. Zhang did not pay attention to him. Forced to hold back the anger in his heart, intends to first finish the work, and then after tomorrow's class to ask one by one which students are disruptive. In this way, Mr. Zhang buried his head to work for another half an hour. Finally, his busy work late because his family in the next village, far away from so late, also do not go home, directly sleep in the duty room, but so made a bed effort. Mr. Zhang vaguely feel behind himself, seems to have a pair of eyes staring at themselves, which makes his heart born a bad feeling. If it was a student messing up, but this time was also too late. Mr. Zhang slowly turned his head, only to see that at this moment, the window was reflecting a fearful and creepy human face that was staring at him motionlessly, which made him immediately let out a cry of alarm. For acting, he was busy rushing out of the house, wanting to go and see who was really fooling around this night. But when he went out to take a look, the window was still empty. There was nothing at all, not to mention that he didn't hear any footsteps in the courtyard. This time, Mr. Zhang completely feels scared, because if someone teasing him should be able to hear the other side of the footsteps to escape. Mr. Zhang more and more feel wrong. The heart is also vaguely some uneasiness. He told himself, don't think about these things, and quickly go back to the house to lie down. Turn off the lights to sleep. But what I did not expect is that just lie in bed not long, the schoolyard came a burst of disorganized footsteps. Zhang teacher some annoyance. But this time, he did not turn on the light, but quietly get up out of bed. Want to see who in the end, or the school into the thief? Just as he reached the window, he noticed a figure shifting outside. But the next scene made his whole body scared to death, only to see that two graves with tombstones had appeared outside the door of the duty room at some point. But this was simply impossible. Mr. Zhang thought that he had misread the situation and hurriedly rubbed his eyes to look again. However, he actually saw not only the duty room door, the entire schoolyard is densely packed with graves. In between the graves, wondering a strange posture of the ghosts. Even if it is always do not believe in ghosts and gods of teachers, saying, at this time to see this picture, cannot help but be scared to let out a scream. But he immediately realized that something is wrong, busy tightly cover his mouth. But this scream seems to have alarmed the yard, those horrible ghosts and shadows. All of them turned their heads to Teacher Zhang. They all turned their heads towards Mr. Zhang. Then they slowly swarmed towards the door of Mr. Zhang's duty room, looking at how many ghosts had gathered outside his window. Mr. Zhang's legs had gone soft with fear. Perhaps the ghosts had discovered him, and those ghosts crowded their faces towards the window, as if they might break through the window and climb in at any time. A terrified scream came out, and Mr. Zhang only felt a dizzy spell in his head, and then he lost consciousness as soon as his eyes closed. When he woke up again, it was already the next morning. Mr. Zhang woke up from his coma and told everyone what had happened the night before. Everyone then remembered that this place was once a mass grave, and their school was built on a mass grave. The principal then invited a Taoist priest who was skilled in ghost hunting and spent 3 days and 3 nights driving all the ghosts away. Since then, the school has been free of weird things. Do you have any other strange encounters? Feel free to send me your stories so that I can share them with everyone